topic, but it can be. So I chose feminism, and the reason I chose feminism is because it's still very relevant to this day, and there's a lot of history to it, and there's plenty of organizations that actually support feminism. So the history of feminism, I know most people think of like the 1920s women's suffrage movement, but it actually started in the 15th century when women couldn't own land, and it was only the men who could own land. So women fought for their right to own land because that was like a big problem. And then, of course, the 1920s when women fought for the right to vote. And then actually recently in the 1990s when, because women of color and women involved in the LGBTQ community were actually more accepted into the feminism movement, because back in the 1920s that was like not okay, and it was mainly white women who were educated and possibly more wealthy than the poor women. And so in the 1990s there was a big push for women of color and more minorities within the feminism movement. So I also chose the relevance of feminism because a lot of people think it's modern, we don't need a lot of feminism, but we actually do. And I chose this because, and I'm using the U.S. women's soccer team as an example, because even though over the past 4 years they've made it to all the finals and they've done better than the men's soccer team, they've actually only been paid 38% of what the men's soccer team is paid. So according to Jesse Pound, the men's soccer team cap on like salary is $1.6 million per athlete, and the women's soccer team salary cap is $260,000. So, and viewing for women's soccer team is higher, and their record is better, and they bring in more revenue, but they're still paid less. So that's obviously a problem. And in the workplace, full-time workers, salary workers, on average, women make 79% of what men make, and that's actually white women, and women of color are actually paid even less than what men make. So, that's obviously a problem because women need to, there are single women, there are single parents that need to pay for everything that men need. And if men are paid more, then it's obviously unfair. Even if they're educated, if they're the same position, they're educated the same way, it shouldn't be a difference on who gets paid more and who gets paid less. So then I actually chose some organizations. So I've been saying AWID, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's an organization and they actually help women across the world, and mainly they focus on women in third world countries, supporting them with feminine products, knowing or like ways to get out of abusive situations, abusive households, helping them support their kids, finding jobs for them to do, just all in general support. And then I also chose UN Women, which is the United Nations entity within, or it's an entity within United Nations. And United Nations is obviously worldwide and global. And UN Women actually kind of does a similar thing of what AWID, I'm not sure, I'm still not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's okay. I chose both of those because those were the largest companies, and they really do focus more on third world countries, and that's where obviously a lot of sexism shows up, and those are the two things I chose. So the reason I chose this topic is because I'm very passionate about it. I think that women should have a voice, and those two organizations actually give women a voice and give them a chance to tell them who they are and empower women. I really am all for empowering women. I think that all women should have the same rights men do. And they should be paid the same too. But because I can do any job that women can do, if not better. So that's what I'm saying. Fun little fact, women actually experience abuse. 25% of women will experience abuse in their lifetime, while only about 7% of men will experience abuse in their lifetime. 1 in 4 women are actually experience sexual assault by the time they turn 38, while most men won't experience sexual assault by the time they turn 38. It's not unheard of, but it's not as common as women experience it. And also in third world countries, it's even worse because there's not a lot of resources for women to turn to. There's not a lot of support on women's. I just don't have a lot of support right there. feminism because I think it's very relevant still to this day. It's still needed, and it's very important that women support women and men support women.